Hey everyone, going to be going live over the big three here, watching for an oversold bounce. We're going to be looking at the shorter term time frames as they are more relevant right now, and we have an opportunity approaching. So today's been a little bit different in terms of the action that we've seen, and I'm just going to wait a couple minutes here, not too long, because this is pertinent information. Going to wait for a few people to come in here. We do have a short-term bounce playing out right now, but I personally am being patient on this bounce, and I will describe why. And just going to briefly wait a bit here. So we're going to be looking at the big three and Bitcoin Cash as well on the bounce. If I do play it, which I hope to, I'm going to be looking to play either Litecoin or Ethereum, because it is greater risk to reward on those names. So making sure we're going here, making sure members in the chat room are following along. All right, let's just go. So what we're looking at is Bitcoin on the 4-hour time frame. Look at the RSI. The RSI is right at that 30 line. We know when the RSI gets under 30, we see some really nice bounces. When it gets into the low 20s, we see the most extreme and profitable bounces that we see in those scenarios. So that's what I'm looking for. We just quite touched it when we were down at the low, and we're also looking at the low of the last dump. That low was 14,000. So in the past, the bounces, or I should say the flushes that we see and the best opportunity with the biggest climaxes in terms of just an all-out flush and then a very quick bounce and oversold bounce, then that happens when we see breaks of key psychological support levels. And when that key psychological support level breaks, we see stop losses trigger on the way down, and that's what gives us the flush and the volume climax that we like to enter on and then hold longer term. The more the RSI levels are oversold, the longer you go out. So when the 4-hour RSI is oversold, you hold the trade longer on the oversold bounce. It's not just, a 15-minute flip. You can hold that for a couple hours to have that play out, or even longer if you think maybe we're going to go up for the next couple days. It depends on your trading style, whether you're a swing trader or a day trader. But the 4-hour RSI being oversold is a really nice signal. So the pullback that we've seen today has been very different than what we've seen in the past. This is more of a downtrend, just a slow and steady downtrend. And what gives it that scenario is when we see short-term bounces on the way down that cool off the RSI levels. So if we see a short-term bounce on the way down, we're not just flushing and getting these RSI levels down to extreme levels. We are seeing the RSI cool off a little bit. So here we are with the hourly RSI hitting oversold. We see a short-term weak bounce. We flush down to lower lows. Here we are oversold again on the hourly. Now we're seeing another little short-term bounce. So I'm watching this target of 14,000. I would love to get an entry on 14,000 breaking a volume climax, and then I enter one of the other positions that are directly correlated to Bitcoin. So I'm being very patient here, and I'm actually red on the day right now, and it's the first time I've had a red day in at least 2 weeks. So I am slowing things down because I tried a couple bounces this morning doing the normal style that we usually do, and it didn't work out the same way because the bounces weren't as magnified because the dumps weren't as severe. So it was a little bit of a tricky situation just compared to what we were used to, but all that requires us to do is to adapt to the change in the trading environment and then just switch our style a little bit and switch our game plan and become a little bit more picky and a little bit more protective. So what we're looking at right now is on the 15-minute and the 5-minute time frame, just for the short-term conditions. The 15-minute, look at the RSI, dip oversold. We see these weak short-term bounces. It cools off, and then we dip down to lower lows without the RSI dipping to lower lows. So again, it's cooling off the RSI levels, which we're doing again right now. RSI was oversold, one bounce candlestick, and it's just like that back up to 40 with more room to the downside as the bottom line. So at this point, the 5-minute time frame is seeing a bounce. There is very short-term trade opportunity on these plays, but because we're not seeing a flush and a volume climax, to me that says that the bounces are not going to be significant and magnified. So I'm being very patient here. I have my game plan set up, and my game plan is if we break 14,000 and flush, I'm going to look for Ethereum to break 700 and flush, and I'm going to look for Litecoin to break 275 and flush. And I'll point out those other levels, why I'm looking at them on those different coins. That's my game plan. I'm waiting for that. I'm not getting suckered into these little bounces that, oh, is this going to be the bottom? And am I going to miss it? Maybe I am going to miss it if we don't flush below these levels, but that's fine by me. I'll go to bed and I'll trade tomorrow. You don't have to trade and make money every single day. So if it doesn't hit the criteria that I'm looking for, I'm holding off on the trade. So I'm patiently waiting for a potential bear flag here, a little short-term bounce, and then continuation to the downside. I want that 14K flush. So that's what I'm watching for on Bitcoin. And if we get that 14K flush, that 4-hour RSI will dip nicely into the mid $20 range, and we will be looking down. Again, the supports after that aren't really as important. 13,500 is the next level, but it's scaling into our orders as we break key support. So if we break 14,000, we can scale in, 13.8, 13.8, 13.6, 13.4, whatever it is, scale it on the way down, perhaps leave a little bit of cash that you can get into if we really crash, or you can use as a market order when the bounce momentum starts, and you can add some power behind that momentum as well. So that's what we're looking for on Bitcoin. We're looking to Ethereum. We're not as oversold on Ethereum and Litecoin. It's very important to distinguish that. Look at the 4-hour RSI. It's nowhere near oversold, which is why I'm using Bitcoin as my guide, as my benchmark as to when I'm looking to get into these other names. So if Bitcoin drops down below 4,000, I'm looking for Ethereum to break down below its low of the dump, and that was 701. So 701 was Ethereum when Bitcoin was down at 14,000. So I will be looking for that to break if we're going to break there on Bitcoin. Again, 5-minute time frame is trying to bounce. There's some nice volume behind it. It's just not the flush and climax I'm looking for. 15-minute RSI did get oversold. Again, there are some quick flip opportunities down here. The bottom was 737, and we hit a high of 768. That's a $30 move in 15 minutes. And if you get just a fraction of that at $10, a $10 profit, that's a very quick, very profitable trade. It's just not the style I'm in right now because I am noticing the different scenarios and adjusting my game plan, and this is not something I want to be doing right now in terms of trying to capitalize on these quick flips. So I'm patiently waiting and watching to see if Ethereum is going to drop down as well. But again, it's correlated to Bitcoin, so it's pretty much going to do what Bitcoin does in terms of whether or not we're going to flush and break that level or not. Litecoin, the correlation here would be 275. That was the low of our last dump. Same thing, RSI is not nearly oversold. Bitcoin's going to be our cue here, and we're seeing a short-term bounce cooling off short-term RSI levels. The 15-minute was extremely oversold, and it bounced, so it's not as oversold at this point. So we're looking for a bounce, a weak bounce, and then continuation down eventually because this RSI has cooled off substantially. But the same thing, there's opportunity on a quick flip, 280 up to 291.80. Well, that's not as good. A $10 move, and you've got to figure you're not going to capture that whole move. Again, it's not a ton of opportunity, so patiently waiting. Bitcoin Cash is a bit of a different setup. We don't have too much history here on TradingView. Just added the coin, but we're not oversold. I personally, the correlation isn't strong enough. I'm making this trade. It is definitely there. We're dumping in terms of all 4 of these names, but I'm making this trade based off of Bitcoin, and I like the stronger correlations of Ethereum and Litecoin to Bitcoin comparative to Bitcoin Cash to Bitcoin. So I'm sticking to those names and going to keep an eye on and start to study BCH now and watch how it interacts with these correlations. I haven't watched it this closely yet because I haven't been able to trade it. So just patiently waiting and watching that correlation, but not planning on trading BCH. So I'm watching for Bitcoin for that flush under 1400. That is my game plan. If it occurs, it will likely happen sometime before midnight. It is 9:37 p.m. Eastern. I would expect sometime in the next 2.5 hours. And that is my play. So I hope you all can join in if that is, what the game plan is. And then we'll be looking for a bounce to play out overnight and into tomorrow if that is going to occur. So we'll see how it plays out. I will be checking in every now and again, and we'll be in the chat room. But again, the alert service, if you're going to bed, use that 4-hour RSI on Bitcoin, and that will let you know when we are heading into oversold. So I appreciate you all watching, and I am just doing a quickie update here because, again, I'm going to get back to living life and keeping an eye on things, and as we approach 14,000, then I know it's time to establish the game plan and stick those orders in. When we do get down into oversold territory, we're going to see the exchanges lag again. We're going to see high volume and high trading. So if we see that happen, we want to have our orders already in place. So our orders fill on the way down, and all we have to worry about is scaling out on the way back up. But anticipate that the exchanges are not going to cooperate with you and plan for that ahead by placing your orders ahead of time in terms of buying in. And then it's much easier in terms of having to scale out than it is, trying to scramble to get in and chase. So I hope this was helpful in terms of establishing a game plan. Not saying you have to do what I'm going to do. Maybe we don't break 14,000 and maybe we bounce, $500 and I miss that play. Again, I'm perfectly fine with that because in my head, this is now the strategy and what I'm looking for, and I'm set in that. I could adjust if we do see a change, but that's not what I am planning on doing tonight. So thanks again. I appreciate you watching. Thanks to the 5 people that consistently downvote these videos. I hope you have a better day. I have to wonder who clicks every single video to just downvote it. And these downvotes come in 2 minutes after I upload it, so they're not watching it. They clearly just really don't like me for some reason. But it does bring a smile to my face, so I appreciate that. And we'll see you all tomorrow.